Rome promised peace, but under Commodus, it turned into a hellscape of war and chaos. In 180 AD, he ascended to power, putting the brutal Marcomannic Wars his father, Marcus Aurelius, waged on hold. But the peace Commodus dangled was a mirage, a thin veil masking something vile beneath. Commodus was no philosopher king. Grabbing the reins of power, he demolished everything Marcus Aurelius had fought for. Bold, reckless, he unleashed a 100-day orgy of blood-soaked gladiatorial games, sending shockwaves through the heart of the empire. Behind closed doors, senators whispered the word madman. The Historia Augusta laid it bare. Marcus sought wisdom. Commodus craved blood. Check the letters from those dark days. Senator Lucius Valerius, in sheer desperation, wrote, "We stand on the brink of enlightenment, only to be hurled into terrifying darkness." Those words, soaked in the anguish of betrayal, paint a bleak picture. Rome steered off its carefully carved path. The Senate's grip slipped, toppled by an emperor whose true arena was soaked with blood, not respect. Marcus Aurelius commanded reverence. For Commodus, there was a seething disdain. The rot was internal. His own flesh and blood moved against him. Declassified files reveal a plot in 182 AD, masterminded by Commodus's own sister, Lucilla. He survived, using it as an excuse to unleash hell, purging the Senate with ruthless efficiency. In the vaults of the National Archives of Rome, they hold damning evidence, detailing those secret rendezvous that sought his downfall. This was beyond the games, beyond the Colosseum. It was a deadly, ruthless tango of power in the palace halls. What drove Commodus down this dark path remains a conundrum, but the consequences were clear. His reign was not serene, but a brutal storm of terror. Year 182 AD. Imagine betrayal seeping through the cracks of power like poison. Commodus, wrapped in the blood of Caesar, almost met his end by none other than his sister Lucilla. The bitter twist of kinship turned lethal. Historia Augusta doesn't hold back, spilling secrets like crimson wine, exposing the treachery whispered in Lucilla's cold villa. Commodus, though, he's no fool. His shadowy network of informants, folks like Cleander, kept him one step ahead. They crushed Lucilla's conspiracy with a ruthless, bloody finality. Her failure was a gift to Commodus. He grabbed it like a lifeline. It gave him the excuse to unleash a vicious purge on the Senate. Bodies dropped, exile wagons filled, all documented in the annals of Imperial Rome. The dread seeped through every corner of the city. Anyone breathing too loudly was branded a traitor. Step out of line and join the restless dead. It was a game of power, and Commodus was all in, turning Rome into a carcass heaped at his feet. By 190 AD, Commodus dared to rename Rome Colonia Commodiana. Not just pure arrogance, it was a declaration proclaiming himself as a living god. Streets lined with fear, as thick as the contempt in the eyes of the people. And in the thick of this chaos, Cleander was there, grinning, milking the state coffers dry. Money that should have fed the people fed their outrage instead. Cleander was a leech, fat from the blood of Rome's misery. But Commodus needed him, needed the chaos to bind his grip tighter. In this madness, Commodus stood smug, an arena emperor, basking in blood sport. A man who turned betrayal into his crown. He wasn't ruling a realm, he was strangling it, savoring the agony. He betrayed Rome not in mighty battles, but with every sickening smile, every innocent life extinguished for power's sake. In 192 AD, Commodus wasn't just playing emperor, he dressed himself in the blood-stained garb of a gladiator. This wasn't some petty show of power, it was a grotesque circus carved into the most sordid pages of Historia Augusta. The records turn your stomach. Citizens, robbed of their dignity, forced into costumes of mythical beasts, became pawns in his violent fantasies. Take a good look at the empire's financial records. What a damn disgrace. The cost of these bloodbaths crushed Roman wallets with monstrous taxes. The annals of Imperial Rome lay bare the ugly truth. Taxmen prowled the streets like predators, feeding Commodus's insatiable appetite for blood and chaos. Whispers of discontent echoed in the shadowy halls of power. Hear the cry from Senator Gaius Julius' letter. We sit here in shameful silence while Rome becomes a blood-drenched arena. Words that trembled through the Senate's stone walls, words that Commodus ignored. Commodus wasn't messing around. He wielded these games like a dagger, a tool to silence opposition, to buy loyalty. Keep the masses mesmerized, keep the soldiers obedient. Every brutal match was a twisted loyalty test, a stage where dissent was hammered down with the edge of the sword. Forget the myths. Commodus transformed empire into enterprise and power into cold, cynical strategy. Rome wasn't the proud empire it had once been. Forget whatever you've heard about absolute power being the biggest threat to an empire. Commodus didn't need that illusion. He was the damn demon at Rome's core, sucking the life out of your lungs if you dared breathe wrong. This wasn't an emperor who just crushed rebellions. Hell no. He wiped out any voice with methods even nightmares wouldn't dare dream up. Flip through the Historia Augusta, and Rome's dungeons scream back at you. Blood-soaked cries echo through those stone-cold walls. Senator Marcus Senecio didn't jot down complaints. He carved out brutal truths. We live in a terrified silence, ruled by dread and deceit in Rome. In 190 AD, when famine and the desperate cries for grain burned through the city, Commodus didn't flinch. He axed Clender, his most loyal confidant. Clender, once his right-hand man, got shafted to pacify an enraged mob. A desperate act to cling to power, a move that tore open the festering rot within his regime. Annals of imperial Rome painted the grim picture. Famine, born straight from the womb of corruption and incompetence, had the people on the brink. Street riots were more than calls for change. They were a brutal indictment of Commodus losing his grip. In this pitiless world where power thrived on betrayal and fear, Commodus shaped a Rome that left no man safe to sleep. His brutality was burned into the empire's heart, dragging it into an era of invisible terror and treachery. The monstrous ending of Commodus, an emperor who fancied himself as Hercules. This wasn't a legend being written, but a nightmare tearing through the pages of history. December 31st, 192 AD, those supposed to be his closest allies decided he had overstayed his welcome on the luxurious throne. Eclectus, his chamberlain, loyal not to the man, but to survival, and Marcia, his lover who had grown tired of the erratic cruelty, conspired in the shadows of his opulent bathhouse. Commodus was living a delusion. He saw New Year's Day as the moment to announce himself not just reborn, but divine. His arrogance had reached a fever pitch. His advisors feared him. He was a danger to every living soul around him. Marcia tried to dispatch him with poison in his wine, but fate played a bitter joke. The poison didn't kill him outright. He fell, cursed by his own hubris, convulsing in a ballet of agony that echoed through the halls of power. But the dance of death needed a final step. Eclectus knew the pageantry of a failed assassination was not enough. Enter Narcissus, the gladiator, summoned to finish the grim task. Without a second thought, Narcissus closed his hands around the emperor's neck. Commodus gasped in terror, his breath stolen by the same cruel force he had dispensed on others. The sound of his demise, a haunting note, reverberated against the stone-cold walls. Commodus was silenced, a brutal curtain call to a tyrant's reign. Once his body grew cold, the conspirators moved with the swiftness of those chased by their own fears. They erased documents, rewrote chapters of history to cloak their treachery. Within days, the Senate condemned him as a public enemy, another fallen despot of Rome's bloody saga. But Commodus left a shadow, a malignant specter that stalked Rome, a reminder that chaos can wear the crown as easily as any ruler. By the first dawn of 993 AD, Rome was shivering, not from cold, but from the hangover of Commodus's reign of terror. That madman was dead, sure, but the scars he left were cut deep. The Senate didn't just turn their back on him. They spat, called him a public enemy, and buried his name in disgust. This wasn't bureaucracy at work. It was vengeance, retribution for years spent under his thumb. The annals of imperial Rome screamed out, "We lived under the boot of a monster," and those bastards wanted payback. They didn't just topple his statues, they pulverized them. Anger pounded the marble to dust. Not because the art wasn't good enough, but because hate needed something to break. Commodus was scrubbed from existence, erased from the histories, like his name was poisoned. But the hole he left lingered, like the stink you can't wash off. Historia Augusta bared the chaos that erupted from the void he left. The soldiers, Rome's iron fist, woke up to their own power. They weren't just pawns, they were kingmakers. And so began the Year of the Five Emperors, a chaotic scramble for control that turned ambition into bloody sport, emperors disappearing like smoke in wind. Commodus's empire was a circus of fear. Violence was its currency. His successors, poor suckers, were left to pick up the mess while their world teetered on the edge of collapse. His damnation didn't kill the games he adored. They played on, a sick distraction for the masses, numbing them to the iron grip of reality. In this twisted irony, Romans poured into the arenas with hatred heavy in their hearts. They cursed his name, but lived in the chaos he crafted. Official records may have scrubbed him clean, but Commodus's shadow loomed large over Rome.